Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Today is July 20th, 2025, and our topic today is it's okay to scream.
We recommend it while you're driving and you're alone and there's no one around and your windows are up and people will think you're singing. Yeah. Well, we've been looking at the political situation. We've been looking at the economic situation. We've been looking at the amount of heat there is in the environment. And every Sunday we talk about being prayerful and thoughtful and spiritual and finding a higher place. And I don't think we've ever said it's okay to scream. Sometimes you just need to scream. You need another person that I talked to this morning said, is it okay to hit the pillows? And I said, I can write a permission slip. So you can write the pillow, give it to your spouse and say, I have permission. I want to give you an official, because I'm a doctor of religious science. I'm going to give you a doctor's order. It's okay to scream and to hit things, not people, and not things you want to keep or want to have later, or not things that have great value. But it's okay because if we don't let that out, what also happens is we let it out in other ways. We let it out in ways that become destructive to our physical body. And we know that people that are raised in oppressive families where there's tremendous amounts of conflict and lots of unresolved anger and hurt, what ends up happening to them as they get older is they have a higher incidence of heart disease. They have a higher incidence of many different diseases because the body bottles that energy up. So on the one hand, to find a higher place, a better place, a spiritual place to go to find that field where beyond yes, right and wrong, and to be able to get there, sometimes we have to scream before we go to the field. We have to let go of some of that energy. And we saw an HBO, I think it was HBO special that was really interesting about a woman who had wrongly accused, mistakenly, I won't say wrongly, she had mistakenly accused a man of raping her. And he spent 17 years in
She
jail.
chose him from
A lot.
police suspects.
Yeah. And
Right.
so she really believed that she was right. And it turns out he served 17 years and he wasn't the person who did it.
That they can do DNA tests now.
Right. So he was released. And what she brought up was that she became a victim a second time. She was now a victim of a false accusation. And she was victimized by people too who said, I can't believe you would do this to this poor man.
Ruin his life.
Yeah. And she's saying, God, first I'm abused and I do what I think is the right thing. And then I'm abused again. And it brought up the whole idea for us, or the conversation about how can we know that the action we take is right action? And the answer is we can't. We can do our best to try to figure out if it's right action or not. We can do our best to do our homework. And at the end of the day, we may even find out that we were misinformed, that the action we took really wasn't the right action. I'm going to go one step further with this. In this documentary we saw, she began leading groups. And the groups that she was leading were with the people who had been released from jail, who'd been falsely accused, and the people who'd falsely accused them in the same room at the same table, meeting for the first time. And what she was also saying is we need to be accountable and responsible, but we also need to create a place for healing. And I thought that was so powerful. That's so powerful in life in general. We often need to meet the people who we have accused wrongly and rightly and have a conversation with them that is bigger than right and wrong, out in that field that Rumi talks about, where we can actually then get to know people. But one of the exercises that she did, which was really impressive to me, which is actually where the title of this talk came from, was she had each person at the table take a glass dish and set it on the table and then cover it with
Or ceramic.
a ceramic, yeah, cover it with a towel and then take a big hammer and smash it. But symbolically, I also thought a lot of the times when we break something with a hammer, we first cover it with a blanket. We cover it with a blanket of self-righteous rage. We cover it with a sense of, I know I'm doing the right thing, but we don't want to see it. That is, we don't want to see the repercussions. We don't want to see the sharp edges. We don't want to see the hurts that were inflicted as a result of our having taken that hammer to this thing and having broken it. The second part of it was to take the cover off, to see the broken pieces and glue them together again. And of course, the person who's leading this says it's interesting, it takes less than a second to break it, and it takes hours to put it back together again. how many of us take no action because we're afraid that if it's a wrong action, it will take a lifetime to repair. So we say, I'm not going to do that. I'll sit back. What is so wonderful about this metaphor for me was after the gluing of the pieces, you have a whole dish again, but you have a dish that's scarred. And now what they do, which is from a Chinese tradition, Japanese tradition, is they cover it with a gold leaf uh, paint. And what they're saying is there's gold in the lesson. There is gold in the learning.
There's gold in the injury and the learning.
Yeah, and so why this came about for me was we're going to have to break some things, and when we break some things, we're going to find out we probably shouldn't have done that, or we didn't do it in a way that was necessarily going to promote the idea that we had. So if we're going to break something, we're going to have to also say, and if it doesn't work out, I'm willing to be accountable and responsible for what happens. And it doesn't mean it's over for me, that I have no more future. I can't partake or participate in anything again that's like that because I did that once and it didn't work. And so in the healing process is the learning process. And in the learning process, there's the opportunity for us to do again what we need to with the hammer, but maybe differently. And that is maybe we will use it more thoughtfully, or we'll be sure that what we break up needs to be broken, but we're still going to make more mistakes. And so that's where the scream came from. The scream came from the sound of the hammer in my mind. But I thought the metaphor was an elegant metaphor, but also even more elegant than that was the sitting together with the people that we had offended or we had misrepresented and say, hey, I got it wrong. And every one of them at the table was able to say, hey, I get it. And we can continue. And that was a beautiful healing experience.
It really was. It really was. And well needed.
Mm.
And very needed. So I would like to shift this screaming to another aspect of our needing to scream, and that is political protest.
Mm-hmm.
And, I myself am not one who likes to go out and march in streets, but I was very disturbed to find out yesterday as I was preparing that there were over 1,500 demonstrations. I'm going to read it to you. On the birthday of John Lewis. I'm sorry, it was the 5-year anniversary of his passing. And it was just last week. And what disturbed me is that I never saw any of it on the news. And if there were 1,500 marches and demonstrations, and I never saw it on the news, because I do watch the news, the mainstream news, that really bothered me, because that takes a lot of effort. It's important for our political process to even know who's opposing actions that are taken. But it says that what I just told you about John Lewis, and then, he was a nonviolent civil disobedience senator, and he said, the good trouble lives on was the name of this demonstration this last week on the day of action marked for the 5th anniversary of Lewis's passing, and echoed his famous call to get into good trouble, necessary trouble, for the sake of justice. Lewis, who represented Georgia in Congress for over 3 decades, and I believe he was a minister before that, rose to national prominence through the leadership of the civil rights movement, including the historic 1965 Selma to Montgomery March, where he was brutally beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. His words and witness continue to inspire generations of activists, and Thursday's demonstrations were backed by dozens of advocacy and civil rights groups committed to advancing that legacy. Good trouble has come to mean peaceful resistance against unjust systems, the moral courage to speak out, even in the face of risk, and the kind of civil disobedience modeled by Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Not rebellion for its own sake, but disruption in service of compassion, fairness, and progress. So I honor these people who got out and marched and demonstrated and screamed because they're doing in a peaceful way. I think what we need to do if that's what we are feeling. More commentaries. John Lewis reminded us that faith is not passive. It moves, it marches, and speaks truth to power. The good trouble he championed wasn't just political action, it was sacred action, rooted in love and nonviolence. It calls each of us to rise beyond comfort into courage, to disturb the status quo when justice is denied, and to see protest not as chaos, but as a form of prayer in motion. In spiritual terms, good trouble is the soul's refusal to remain silent in the face of suffering. It is what the prophets did when they cried out in the wilderness. It's what Jesus did when he turned over tables in the temple. And it is what we are called to do, each in our own way, when we see injustice and feel the Spirit stir within us. May we too be brave enough to get in good trouble, trusting that holy disruption can make a way for healing and renewal, much as Bob described the process done by the woman who was abused twice, as she says. So I really support that, and we need to not just be silent and go along when things are happening that we find really oppressive and wrongful for the rights of those who need help the most, because what's happening in our country is the poor are being deprived more and more, and the rich are being rewarded more and more. And I object to that.
And reasonably so. And at the same time, we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to get it entirely right, but we need to be willing to move in the direction that we believe is the right action. And if we do that, we'll learn as we go. And I also think it's really, really important for us to pick what it is we're going to do that we feel comfortable with, that we feel that is right, or not necessarily even comfortable with, but we feel is right enough that we're willing to be uncomfortable with it. And then to do that, and then to reevaluate, did it work? I think unfortunately, what I see happening is that there's a lot of emotion that gets expressed that doesn't really benefit one way or the other. The emotion of being mad at the person who doesn't agree with you, the emotion of fighting that person, as opposed to what strategy could I come up with that might actually help? Questioning rather than accusing, inviting rather than banning. And as we do more of that, we also learn more about the person who we are objecting to their behavior, and maybe they will change, or we will change our approach to them.
I also wanted to commend someone who did something. Cory Booker did a long, what did they call that?
Eulogy.
Political? No, not a eulogy. It's when you speak and speak and speak and speak in Congress.
Right. Yeah, anyway, we know what we're talking about.
We know what we're talking about. Yeah. And he was trying to delay or prevent the vote that happened anyway, that he opposed. And it was the filibuster, because he shared that he has an autistic young daughter, and that the financial cost of the care of her was really exorbitant until she was on Medicare. And he says if she loses Medicare again, it will really be financially hurtful for his family. So he was very opposed. And a quote from him says, "Justice has never been given freely to those in power, given freely by those in power. It must be demanded by those with the courage to get in good trouble." And that's why he did that long filibuster. And I honor him for that.
I'm reminded of the number of times I have watched one or any of our dogs at the table, knowing that who has the power to dispense food from the table is the person sitting at the table, not the person sitting under the table. And it never ceased to amaze me how persistent and willing each dog was to say, I got that you're in power, but I am demanding with my eyes and with my expression that you feed me something because I've never had chicken before and I want it now. You know, you said bacon. That is, my heart runs on bacon. So there's lots of ways to convince, to contrive, to manipulate, to strategize, but we have to ask ourselves, can I live with this? And if I do it wrong and it doesn't work out, can I go back to the drawing board and what can I do now? And if you need to scream and holler and hit the pillow or whatever, go ahead and do that. Let that go, because the clearer minded we are, the more likely we are to be successful. And as all of you know by now, I watch way too many nature programs. And one of the things that I've learned about watching the big cats stalk is, one, they have a strategy. Two, they're extraordinarily patient. Their emotion does not take over and run them. It has to do with their passion, but it doesn't change the way they hunt. The way they hunt is very carefully, very thoughtfully, and until then. And we watched it. It was so funny. We watched a mother leopard trying to teach her babies how to hunt. And the baby said, I'm hungry, I'll get it. And the animal ran away. And the mother said, no, just the fact that you're hungry doesn't feed you. You're going to have to think about what you're going to. And I thought, that's true for all of us. There's no time because we're frustrated that we have to stop thinking. There's no time when our feelings that tell us that we need to do something are not correct, but the something that we do has to comply with what is the environment I live in, what is the world I live in. So I'm saying this because I think we get accused sometimes of inaction, and that being passive is not an action, and it is an action. But what can you do? And if what you can only do, and you're just going to talk about this in a minute, is change your mind about how things are. That's an important step.
Exactly. And
The room.
yes, I know what I'm going to talk about next.
Well, that's good.
So I just want to summarize what I was talking about with the marches. I just found out about it when I read about it in some literature from our home office, and so I thought, how did this happen without my knowing? And to think that 1,500 marches with who knows how many hundreds of people each one went to the trouble of raising their voices, and it didn't even come through to tell. It worries me, just like it worries me that the Tonight Show is being canceled with
Stephen
Colbert, and it just looks to me like more and more is happening to shut down any opposition to what's happening in our country, and we need to have a number of tools to oppose. And the next tool I'm going to share with you is a spiritual tool. I've been reading a book called Alchemy by the author is Siegel, and it's a channel book, a very spiritual book. And what he recommends is that when something or someone upsets us like that, that what we need to do is elevate our own thinking and elevate that person with a technique. And so I have to backtrack a little bit and say that we are all beings that exist on many levels,
many dimensions
and levels. And these levels are called octaves, and they're vibrational octaves. I thought it was interesting since music has 8 notes and octave means 8. So I thought, I guess spiritual evolution does the same thing. And so this material suggests that when someone really upsets us and we really don't like what they're doing, that you can raise them to another level by thinking them. Now, we believe thoughts are things, so that makes sense to me that by thinking about a person being lifted and evolved into a higher vibration, meaning a more spiritual vibration. That's really what we want to see. We want to see a person that we consider to be of low vibration to be raised, to do the right thing, to be fair and kind and not lie, things like that. And so by thinking of, you actually help the person become that. By being angry at them, you don't help them at all. So he calls this upper space for our convenience the upper room. So he says, just put them in the upper room.
That's not so different than my parents saying, go to your room. But it wouldn't have been interesting.
Friend.
It would have been interesting if my parents conceived of an upper room and sent me to
To
that
the upper
room
room,
rather than
yes.
to, it would have been an improvement rather than a banishment. And so you're not saying banish that
No.
person, you're saying, let me imagine them in a place where they could see more, see better, see more clearly, and where love could be possibly more in their lives than it is right now. Because most of the actions that we see, if we think about them, are what people are doing in response to a lack of love, a lack of their ability to accept it, to see it, to know it, and to express it.
Right.
And so,
And so all they can seek is power.
right. So that higher room would be a room of love and light. And I would, if my parents had said, I said, I'll go voluntarily. I'll be glad to go. Yeah. But so it's not punishment. It's
No, it's lifting them.
yeah,
But you lift yourself at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah.
You lift yourself out of the upset and wanting to scream and all that. And
To a better place.
so it's a spiritual technique that I think is really helpful. And I have to remind myself to do it.
What it also does, though, and it's a beautiful exercise in that it exercises consciousness over emotion. It includes and allows and accepts emotion, but it says, let me take this and find a place for it so that it works for all of us, as opposed to, I'm mad, therefore, I'm upset, therefore I need to see if I can release the upset and raise the experience to a better place, which then also frees you up to have greater options, more things that you can do that might very well benefit or improve this world we live in.
I know our founder says, and I paraphrase because I don't have it exactly, but he says, our goal is to be for something and against nothing.
Mhm.
And because he didn't believe in criticizing or fighting. You just know the truth. The truth is that we're all spiritual beings. We're all evolving. And I think this fits into that, to put someone in the upper room and put yourself there too, because you already exist in that upper room on some level.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just that in the human experience, when we incarnate, we forget that. And so it's reminding someone of their true nature, really. And even though they're unaware of what you're doing, on some level, it is helpful. It is helpful.
That's important to know that all of our thoughts are in fact at some level action. And we know that when enough people change their mind about something, that something they've changed their mind about changes, even though they may not voice it, even though they may not actively be on the streets. And
Right.
so, we know that there's that percentage of people that suddenly things tilt in favor of a change. And I'm not in favor of change. I'm in favor of, if we can, the best and right, highest that is possible. And if that means change, then I'm in favor of it. But change by itself doesn't mean anything. And I think one of the mistakes we've often made is we think if we could simply change things, what we need to do is to figure out what is reasonable to change and then move in that direction. In our consciousness and in every area, we've been going through our condo, which is much too small for the amount of things we have, and finding the things that
What's wrong with bringing an office to your condo?
yeah, right, exactly, an office, an
And
art
an art
studio,
studio.
right, and a room to sleep and a place for guests. Uh, but what's been interesting to me is the more things we let go of that don't serve us, the more room we have for the things that do. I think the thoughts and anger and hurt and hate that we have doesn't serve us, but it does take up room. And if we can
Mm.
clear ourselves of that, every time it shows up, you say, I don't want to be hateful. as an impulse to the people that have hurt me, I want to be neutral and say they probably hurt too. What can I do if I'm not busy hating them, if I'm not busy being mad at them? And so if we can, we want to be neutral.
And so ends our talk. Let's end it with a spiritual mind treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but the spiritual mind treatment is one of our words for affirmative prayer. So, and in this kind of prayer, we affirm as already existing what we want to happen.
The highest and the best.
Yes. So we acknowledge, first of all, that the power that we are calling on is the power of God. We know there is one infinite and all powerful energy and creative energy and source of all life that we call God. And we know that it exists everywhere, including within each one of us. And so as we call forth this change we want to see, we know that it is the truth of our being. And we see and honor and praise a world that works for everyone. We see and know and praise justice and righteousness and kindness and love existing throughout our government, throughout our nation, throughout our world. We know this is the truth of our being. We know this is the truth of life. And we see it, we give thanks for it.
And knowing that it is so, we say together,
And so it is.
I would have entered into that treatment, but you were doing such a magnificent job of it. There was just really nothing to add. Yeah.
Thank you. Reverend Doctor. Reverend Dr. Bob.
And I was watching.
So right now we just would like to do a quick screen share.
And before we even do that, I want to say thank you for all of those who have been generous in your sharing. We've received some generosity from folks that it's impressive and it makes us happy when we can pay our bills.
You pay the church's bills.
Yeah.
So, yes, we do. We do thank you. And this is as much a thank you as it is a request, for your support, because we do believe in the law of circulation, and that as you give, you do receive. Actually, giving opens the flow in your life of receiving what you give. So we like to say this affirmation: my investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so to donate, this is our website, first page, cslpalmbeaches.org. And you just go to this little tab up at the top that says ways to donate in order to send your gift. So we thank you. And end the share.
So it is. So we're going to
share. And
stop the recording.